So actually back then I was full-time working in Sweden, and as often happens, love brings back. My current wife, I decided to move back to Estonia, and at the same time, Government Chief Information Officer Siim was looking someone to his team as the government's first Chief Data Officer, and this is how I ended up here.
So who do you report to in the government of Estonia?
So I report to our Vice Chancellor, who oversees everything that has to do with the government. So Government Chief Information Officer.
Okay. I mean, a lot of countries or a lot of companies and also countries now starting to have chief data officers. I think countries, I read in Wikipedia that maybe France might have been the first country 2014 to have a chief data officer. And there's some of the maybe states, for example, the United States, they had chief data officers a bit earlier. So how do you see your role as chief data officer of Estonia?
So my role basically right now is on the strategic coordinates of data science, also data governance across the government. However, when it comes to data science and AI, we also, with our team, focus more strongly on the public side. So for instance, education. So it really is with the focus on the government side, but in the end, we still work with the private sector, with citizens, so forward. So it's really widespreading. So when someone would have asked a few years ago what you actually look, how the work is, I would perhaps, I would have thought that it would be so wide-ranging too, definitely.
I mean, you're calling us from your home office. Although the whole government is working from home, which I guess is a piece of cake for Estonians.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we are working from home starting last week, and the transition so far has been actually quite seamless. So we have had some bumps, but otherwise everything has worked out quite perfectly.
I wouldn't expect anything less from Estonia. Okay, so we're looking forward to your talk, Ott. So we have about a 1 hour talk roughly, and then we have 30 minutes for Q&A. I'm sure there will be lots of questions for you. Okay, I'm going off screen. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. So as introduced, my name is Velsberg, and I'm the Chief Data Officer of Estonian government. Today, I'm going to present you how Estonia builds the next generation e-government with AI. And I'm going to particularly focus on different use cases that we have already live in the government. So before we head on to all the use cases we have, it is important to go through the basics. In Estonia, we have over 99% of services online. So the government is really, truly paper-free. Back in this year's February, we still had some services that you couldn't do online. You had to be present in person. So one of them, for instance, was getting married, getting a divorce, and selling real estate. However, due to COVID crisis, we are able to move faster with notarial acts as well. So now we still have only 2 things that you need to be fully in presence to do. So we are steadily, but quite fast, moving towards completely online government. And as a result, as Reina asked, it was quite easy for us to transition from working at the office to working from home remotely. And digital is at the heart of everything we do. Digital comes first. When we look at citizens, over 90% use internet, over 90% of households have access to mobile phones and so forward. So no longer we are speaking about a huge group of people that are unable to access public services. That number is steadily decreasing. And at the heart of everything the government does, citizen centricity plays a role. So whatever we do, citizen comes first. Similarly, all individuals own their personal data. It is already possible to see from the government portal estonia.ee when different government agencies have accessed citizens' personal data and for which reason. And we are extending the different number information systems that provide this information as we speak. Also, we are radically trying to democratize the possibilities for citizens to decide over how their data is being used. And as a result, we are developing consent management platform, which offers citizens the chance to decide which private or public sector entities similarly can access their own data to share personal data to different stakeholders. And of course, once only principle. So if someone has shared data to the government, we shouldn't ask for that data twice. So this has built us quite great foundation. And when it comes to data, we rely on X-Road, which is our data exchange layer. And X-Road allows us to transfer data between public sector organizations, but also between private sector organizations. And each year we have over 1.3 billion transactions, and over 3,000 different services use X-Road. From those, close to 2,500 are from the public sector side. However, as I said, private sector continues to use X-Road as well. So in short, we have digitalized almost everything. It is possible to fill in taxes in less than 3 minutes. It is almost Christmas time. So for me, it is really easy to ask for a permit to cut the Christmas tree and pay for the Christmas tree at the same time. It is easy to get a hunting license or fishing license, reporting a crime, and so forward. So everything is digital. So one could start to think, everything seems quite nice, quite perfect. But we shouldn't stop here. We need to rethink how we can make the government as lean, as proactive, and as personalized as possible. And as a result, we want to make the government zero bureaucracy. And we want to make decisions based on the data that we have amassed during the last 20 plus years building the e-government we have today. To support this proactive, non-bureaucratic government, we have an proactive government or seamless public services implementation plan in process. As you can see, starting a business to childbirth to unemployment job search, there are different government services that we want to completely streamline or reduce the number of interactions a person must have with this government to as little as possible. So for instance, when it comes to childbirth, we already, in Estonia, we have a problem that you need to register your child to kindergarten waiting list 4 years, 3 years beforehand. So now when you're already expecting a baby, you can have the child automatically registered to your home area kindergarten. So when it's really the time, then child has a place at the kindergarten. Similarly, you can already decide before actually having a baby what different allowances you will have and so forward. So making the government for the citizen. Citizen comes first. Many of the things I showed beforehand doesn't require any AI, but some of them do. For instance, unemployment or job search. And to support that, we are in Estonia using Kret as a synonym for AI. And Kret is from old Estonian mythology, and it is a creature made of hay and wood that you donate few drops of blood, and Kret helps you carry out different tasks. But you need to always kind of be cautious that if you're not careful enough, Kret will somehow make something horrible for you. And just to continue, when we talk about AI, then we are really talking about machine learning. For us, AI equals some kind of ML, deep learning, so forward. So it is not process kind of streamlining. If some process seems humanly smart, it isn't AI. And some of the great use cases we already have, from providing recommendations to optimization and prioritization, prediction, automation, we have different use cases live today in the government. So one could ask, how did we start the journey towards using AI? It all started in August 2018, when the Government Office and Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication decided to form an AI task force. And the objective of the AI task force was to come up with recommendations on how to support the uptake of AI in public sector, in private sector, in research and development, and also whether there are changes needed in the legal system. And driven by this work, we came out with a report and strategy. If you're interested in learning out more, go to kredit.ee. You can also get familiar with different use cases that we have right now in the government already in place and what we are right now developing as well. And from the recommendations, we saw that we can use existing measures, but in some cases just tweak them. So we don't need that many additional measures just for the AI. What we're already doing when it comes to IT, building the next e-government, they can be tweaked for data science as well. We also saw that the public sector has a leading role here. So public sector should kind of be the leading role and collaborate with private sector and with universities in showcasing what is actually possible. And if possible from our side, we should make the solutions open source, available to everyone to reuse. And of course, we need to work with private sector digitalization. Unfortunately, in Estonia, private sector digitalization is not as in a great position as it is in the public sector. So we need to work with digitalization more strongly. And when it comes to legal questions and ethical questions, it is important to note that we should be as unified, all countries, as possible. So we, from day first, we considered that we are considering what European-wide initiatives happen. So if there are regulations from European Commission, we are following those. We don't need to build our own ethical guidelines or something similar. And as a result, we see support or uptake of AI across different sectors today. In 2018, we had only 4 use cases live in the government. And today we have close to 50. We see use cases from transportation to agriculture, from human resources to justice. There isn't a field that is kind of sticking out from the rest, but rather we see uptake of AI across all different fields. And this is also illustrated by the number of use cases. So when I mentioned that in 2018 August, we had 4 use cases, then today we have 47 use cases live with 38 projects ongoing. And the aim is to have at least 50 KRETs or AI solutions, as we call, by the middle of next year. So July 2021, we need to have at least 50 AI use cases live in the government. However, the number doesn't illustrate what we are going after. So every solution must bring society value. So we are not funding projects just for the number, but each project must deliver some potential, something for the government or to the citizens or to the business. The number of organizations has similarly jumped from just a couple to 26, and in 6 organizations it's ongoing. And we have today 5 reusable KRET components. We actually achieved this just a few days ago. And I need to note that today there are no fully automated processes. So in the previous slide, I briefly mentioned reusable KRET components. And reusable KRET components have actually played an important role in the uptake of AI across the government. And they are basically base components that each different public sector organization, but also private sector, can use to their own basic needs. We already have available translation tools, speech synthesis, text analysis, tagger, speech recognition, and we are right now developing chatbot and process analysis. And unfortunately, due to COVID crisis, 2 projects were kind of postponed to next year, but we are going to work on them as well. So speech analysis and video and picture analytics as well. And everything I'm here mentioning is open source. So everyone can use them to whichever way they deem necessary. So to the first use case, text analysis. The tool itself is called Text Toolkit, and it has been funded from the Estonian language technology scheme. And it is an open source software for performing different tasks such as surfing text, classification, clustering, building training materials, information extraction, and so forward. So it is quite versatile, and at the same time, we actually compile different solutions already available to everyone, but make them more easier to use by non-IT people. So it is possible to train different ML models just through kind of user interface, also see how the models work, see their evaluations. We provide different materials on what the different metrics mean, what the different words mean. Early on, we made one huge mistake. From our perspective, we thought that it is easy enough. The manual is easy enough. It's descriptive enough. However, when it comes to regular folks who don't work with the data science, IT on daily basis, it was still too difficult. So we have now additional investments. We have tried to explain everything to as much as possible. So I hope it really pays off. So to the use cases. Regarding use cases, there are plenty. I mentioned that many of the things have also been used by the private sector. For instance, one of the biggest Estonian newspaper company uses Text Toolkit to detect hate speech from commentaries. Whether it's racist, homophobic, insulting comments, there are many different examples. And here is one of the examples on how the system actually works. So it gives a probability whether the comment should be deleted or it should be allowed, or someone has to validate whether it's homophobic or racist comment. And I will be frank, detecting racist comments by hand is almost impossible to do. People have extremely great way of coming up with new racist words that no one previously predicted or even knew. So manually adding the words that might be racist was out for us. Going through the commentaries by hand is out of the question. There are just hundreds and hundreds of comments every minute. At first, it was Õhtuleht just decided that they are going to close the comments, but this is not the solution as well. We already have technology that actually can help us to overcome such barriers. Similarly, it has the same text toolkit has been used in Scoro, a private sector software to analyze and tag internal mails. Similarly, information extraction, names, companies, and so forward. And it gives really better insight about different issues and fact-based decision in business. In the government, however, we have used Text Toolkit for topic tagging for customer support. Why was actually this use case necessary? So in Consumer Protection and Technical Regulatory Authority, we decided to combine 2 authorities into one and decided to keep just one info email address. And it was quite difficult to understand who is responsible to which questions and who to forward the question So it was just really time consuming. And even during one day, it was impossible to transfer the questions that at the same day came in to the right people. So now, thanks to automatic topic tagging, it is possible to streamline much of the work otherwise done by humans. And this is, I think, one of the key things. You don't always need to go big to benefit the organization. Even small use cases often really pay off. One of the projects that we tested out, and unfortunately it didn't deliver the value we at first expected, was topic detection from books. And here the aim was to add different keywords to books in our national library. So this is a really typical thing that every library has. So if they have a book, they want to tag them by keywords that they would be then in future be searchable. Unfortunately, we faced some difficulties regarding intellectual property. So we are unable to analyze books starting from 1970s, which meant we are only able to right now classify only a part of the books in a correct manner. So we're right now working on kind of the next step, but it has potential. It can save humans work time. So right now this is done by 20 people in our national library. So a lot of people read through the book and add keywords, but we see that in future it is possible to completely automate this as well, but we still need some time. So we need to solve how we are able to actually analyze and use books right now protected by different regulations and use this information for the society's benefit. Talking about society's benefit, then we have used the Texta toolkit also in document registry audit and to make sure that the documents published are GDPR compliant. And the Texta toolkit here has been used to classify documents, whether they are internal documents or they are documents that could be considered public, also identify different personal information within those documents, whether there are names, addresses, and so forward. And why this is important, in Estonia we have had quite a few document leaks, document registry leaks, whereby private information has leaked out. So this is a downfall, and they are mostly a human error. So people just don't assign the correct limit to the documents, but now we are able to automate that to a large degree. And similarly, we have used Texta toolkit, for instance, for automatic de-identification of judicial decisions. While previously, if we were interested of providing these documents as open data to everyone interested in using those judicial decisions, we had to go manually through, but now we are able to a large degree, do it automatically. However, this is a project that still needs kind of a phase 2. So right now it's information extraction task, but we still have some shortcomings, which I'm going to mention later as well. But I can say that one of the problems we right now have when it comes to different de-identifications of names and so forward is that people name their children in a freaking unique way. So the corpora that we right now use doesn't represent the actual names that we have right now in the government. It is not only Estonian names that we are talking about. So if it were just Estonian names, it would be easier to solve, but we also have other kind of more unique names, also company name and so forward. So we need to work on language corpora quite a lot. Similarly, we have used our speech recognition or transcription in different use cases. So for instance, in hospitals,
Yeah, this is Reinhard here, the moderator. Is it on my end or is it on Odd's end that we are experiencing connection problems? Okay, so it seems to be on Odd's end. All right, we are going to yeah, we have, I guess, Odd will be reconnecting. Okay, we'll be checking with Odd that he is reconnecting. Okay. Let me just go a little bit of the video and let me give him a call. Sure that he is. Okay, you're back.
To be honest, something happened with the internet. So out of the blue, everything just went down.
Okay.
So did I drop out here?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm now going. You can see my slides as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. So we also have used speech recognition in different use cases, for instance, in Parliament. And right now, the precision is close to 95%. However, as I was just going to say, we have some problems, and mostly regarding speaker recognition. So it was also part of the project. However, some Parliament members haven't spoken even once during their 4-year time, or sometimes even longer. So we are unable to predict who is actually speaking. And here is an example of the same system or similar use case used in a court. So transcribing different members in the court and also assigning who is speaking and a possibility to validate the text as well. Similarly, we are investing in speech synthesis. I'm just going to present one example.
Hey Google, read me my calendar.
There are 2 entries for today. At 10 a.m., you have
jaluta koeraga, mine poodi, tee tööd, sõida autoga, ole tubli ja vahve.
At 10 a.m., you also have
Google'i assistent oskab nüüd kalendri sissekandeid ja sõnumeid eesti keeles lugeda.
So here you saw that Google speaks Estonian. It is nothing new. I think everyone, or in most languages, there is Google support for speech synthesis. So why I'm bringing this up? Unfortunately, in Estonia, we need to invest in language technology ourselves. And as a result, Google speech synthesis is not yet available in Estonian for others to use. We need to build the base capacity in Estonia by the government itself. However, we are doing it together with Tartu University and also TalTech and Estonian Language Institute. So together we are building the base components that private sector and public sector can use, while commercial use cases are still completely locked. And this is just one of the examples of a tool we have built together with Tartu University. It is similarly open source. You can also use API. You can choose between the different speakers. And this is something that we continue to develop further. And here, Ministry of Education has been of the most help. They are investing a lot in the way the government works with language data and also language support. And one thing how and what we have done is that we are right now working on making language corpora, different text, parallel text as high value data set. who is not familiar with the concept high value, it is a concept of open data that is set out public according to set standards. And the European Commission has introduced 6 categories, but we are going to extend the high value data set, the categories by 1 extra, so language resources. Because we see that if we continue to want to live in a country that has access to different systems in Estonian, we need to invest in our technology. Similarly, this is nothing new, chatbots. There are a million chatbots, but I'm going to come back to chatbots in a second and to talk a little bit more on what is Estonian take on this question. And machine translation, similarly, we have invested quite a lot in machine translation, and it is used by different organizations as well. For instance, to translate the legal gazette. And this has to do with our Cloud Act. We are unable to right now use cloud services for private or intra-governmental documents. Similarly, we use machine learning or AI in cyber incidents detection. However, this is a kind of a supervised learning example whereby a person is notified of anomaly that occurs and they need to validate whether it is actually an anomaly or not. And here there is a potential that it might be a human error, and right now the checking itself every time an anomaly occurs is done by a person, and this takes a lot of time. So while we detect anomalies, the work itself is still too cumbersome and takes too much time. So it helps, but only to a less degree. Our unemployment insurance fund predicts the long-term unemployment risk of different people. Also, according to their background, better recommendations on which re-education or re-skilling they should take, depending on the area and their background. And the initial results have been just wonderful. Compared to a just person recommendation, the success rate has been close to 58%. That means 6 months afterwards getting the recommendation, the person is still employed. But today we are talking about close to 70–80% success rate when considering the recommendation. The process itself is still, as I said, not automated. So it is used to make the final decision. In agriculture, the government uses satellite images to detect whether farmers actually mow the farmland or not. So whether farmers cut the hay according to their kind of what they have told us. Why this is important? Government right now pays out roughly 350 million euros of subsidies, and we have one requirement, and this is a really typical requirement across Europe, that if government funds farming, you actually have to do something. Otherwise, we would just pay you money to do nothing at all. So far, we have been carrying out this kind of on-spot analysis, so going from one farmland to another, but this takes a lot of time, and it is really impossible to understand whether the farm has been cut or not. And there has been occurrences whereby the government official accuses someone of not mowing the farmland, and their response would be, I'm going to do it next week, or I actually mowed the farm in the beginning of summer. I'm just a really terrible farmer. So to solve that, to get a kind of a clear view of things, we are using Sentinel satellite images and provide them also through STAB, and on that understand whether farmers mow the farm or not. And all of this information is public. As you can see on the right-hand side corner, during the farming season, everyone can see what is the current situation. So it is not to fine people, but to actually point out that please do what you are supposed to be doing. Similarly, we have other projects, both ongoing and finished, whereby one of them is detection of flooding. And this information, for instance, helps us to better plan on where different buildings could be built, how it affects farming, raise awareness of the risks of global warming, and so forward. So it is extremely valuable to understand how during the last 10 years flooding has affected different areas. If we might have storms, to really understand how many farmers are affected, how much crop could be going waste, and so forward. We are right now close to finishing another project. It is for ice detection. Why is this a question? In Estonia, we unfortunately, during the last few years, we haven't had the need to use ice-breaking vessels, but otherwise do, and ice-breaking vessels cost a lot of money. So to better orientate where ice-breaking vessels should go, we are using, again, satellite image detection to understand where ice is located, and then potentially reduce the fuel consumption. And all of the previous examples, they are built on STHUB, which is our satellite data portal, which is open data. And similarly, people can also use Sentinel images. So the idea is that we can support, through kind of giving the base access to data, different both government services, but also private sector services. The next topic, topic sentiment identification from 991 calls. However, this is not the only thing we are doing. Right now we have an ongoing, not ongoing, we finished a project whereby we try to identify information related to traffic accidents in real time. And the idea was to help the customer service to better understand what type of help is actually needed. So whether there are human casualties, whether there is a need or risk of fire or something else, to send out the correct, the police emergency unit, and also assign the correct level to the situation that has occurred. And hopefully, if we are going now to extend the system, we are in future able to reduce the time it takes for customer support to assign their level and critical level of different situations to less than 30 seconds. But also customer support call analysis gives us input on what we should change on different government services. If people call in the beginning of a month with specific questions, then if we are kind of clustering them together, we see that these questions look quite similar, and we perhaps might be able to solve some of the questions beforehand. So kind of preemptive action from our side. And we have already done that. In some cases, we have found out that the information was not visible enough, or we haven't been clear. For instance, when it comes to allowances, we gave too big window, and we didn't clarify that it could happen not at 10 a.m., but it might take a few hours time. So being clear, sometimes designing the services to work better. Another example, Tallinn is a butterfly. Tallinn is our capital. And why it is a butterfly? So before the Corona crisis, we had a lot of passengers coming from Helsinki, Stockholm to Tallinn. So they are the butterflies' kind of ears. And so we have the body whereby all of the main people are driving through. In Estonia, in Tallinn, we have quite many cameras. And using the cameras, we are able to detect how actually cars move throughout the city. And this information can be used to better plan different investments, understand how concessions happen, also how much cars actually move throughout the different streets. But some problems. So we used the infrastructure we had already in Tallinn. However, buses are one of the problems. So they they block the cars behind. So we need to use multiply cars from different angles to actually get the full scale. But even considering this, considering the error rate, we know that kind of the approximate number of cars that move through different districts. So it is not that big of a problem. Also, the cameras get blurry, as you can see from the image as well. So we faced quite many different problems. But why did we decide to go with AI? Was cost benefits. So having separate cameras just counting cars, or clicker, so manually counting, or having different other methods, it actually is more costly than using the same system that Tallinn has so far done. Similarly, our transportation authority, together with the police and border control, just finished a project to predict traffic accidents and the reasons why traffic accidents happen throughout the government and on different roads. And this helps us, hopefully now in future, to make better decisions on how we can reduce the number of traffic accidents in Estonia. So whether it's the curves of the road, it is something else, the information is very valuable to make better decisions. When it comes to collaboration with private sector, in Estonia we have Teeme ära, let's do it. And the idea of let's do it is to make the country as clean from trash as possible. And funded by Microsoft, possible to detect trash on different, for instance, Google Maps images and so forward. So understand how different trash is allocated. And we can similarly use, this is just a demo from a long time ago, it doesn't detect that much, but the idea is that we are actually able to find out how trash is distributed across Estonia. One of the problems with this solution was that we didn't have any annotated data on trash. There just wasn't any. So we had to source that ourselves, do a lot of labeling. But it is not always about using AI. It is really about getting better information to support the different decisions government takes and has. And that data visualization is one of the areas that we are right now working towards. Similarly, different predictions that we make, we try to make available at our government dashboard, which different government units and agencies can access, but also citizens themselves. And this is provided by Statistics Estonia. And Statistics Estonia is spearheading Estonians' data governance. So we are transforming Statistics Estonia to a data governance agency. And also they are providing support when it comes to data mining. And similarly, it is possible to get an overview of different development indicators and how off or how well we are right now doing. However, we shouldn't stop here. So I have showed you different really kind of concrete examples on how Estonia has so far utilized AI, but we are thinking about the future as well, what we can do in a different way. And as a result, we have come out with a concept called Great AI. And the Great AI is a vision of how public services should be delivered or work in the age of artificial intelligence. And the overall aim is to provide citizens public services in a personalized manner through voice-based interaction. So it is, in essence, a citizen's virtual assistant with the government, but also in future with private sector, with non-governmental organizations, and so forward. So it is a person's virtual assistant. But why are we actually trying to build a virtual assistant for a citizen? What is kind of the aim of that? We have seen that people often don't know which public agency to contact at first place. When we take police and border control, then they receive over 30,000 requests each year that don't belong to them. This is extremely time consuming, but it is also time consuming for the citizen who wants to get an answer to their question. Similarly, we see that when we take national portal, Estonia.ee, that close to 60% of all people's questions actually belong to other agencies. So people need to wait a long time, but for the agencies contacted, it is really time consuming. Sometimes they are forwarding the questions, but sometimes they are just kind of being the middleman, asking the agency for a question and then transferring that to the citizen. And in the police and border control example, this could take up to 6.5 human years of work each year, just transferring the messages. But as I showed as well, it is possible to automate much of them. So the human doesn't need to be in the middle of all of them. We also know that mobile devices are used by close to 98% and internet by 90% of Estonian households. And the mobile and internet use continues to rise. So no longer we are speaking that there is a huge minority that doesn't use internet or mobile devices, but rather that it is steadily the number of people who have access to virtual or e-services is steadily increasing. And as a result, the aim is to make digital public services in Estonia radically easier to use and more accessible to people through voice-based virtual assistants. However, at the initial phase, we are working with text. And altogether, the Great AI project has 7 different projects, of which 2 additional ones are more of a collaboration projects. And I'm just going to go briefly over some of them. So in our chatbot and messaging room proof of concept, the idea is to develop an open source chatbot and to test interoperability of bots using message rooms. So we are using Kafka, and the idea is that citizen doesn't need to know which agency to actually contact. Each chat or each bot has their own knowledge base, separate knowledge base. So we don't share any knowledge base between different chatbots. And in the end, people can communicate with the government 24/7. And thanks to the interoperability of bots, it is possible to direct contacts efficiently between different government agencies. And we are right now testing this out with police and border control and Estonia.ee. And on the next slide, you can see that on the screen, there is chatbot decision engine. Chatbot decision engine is for us to allocate the message if the first chatbot doesn't know the answer to some specific domain, but it doesn't know the answer itself. So whether it is in social security, passport renewal, or something else, on a more abstract level, direct that to the correct message room, whereby different chatbots are listening in. And right now, the project is ongoing, and it will be finished in the middle of December. And it is right now developed by a few companies called NetGroup, Texta, and Stack. So thank you to all of them. And hopefully in the middle of December, we can already show you how the system actually works. And the initial kind of results are just amazing. And in the beginning of next year, we are planning on continuing with the development. Similarly, we have another project right now ongoing that is going to finish by December as well. And it is analysis and proof of concept on the use of alternative channels. So right now we are pushing citizens to specific channels that they need to use. However, we should look forward, and we should be more flexible or personalized. So the idea of this project is that whether it is possible for the government to communicate with citizens using private sector owned digital channels. So whether it is Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Skype, so whatever channel you name it. So whether it is possible for the government to actually extend the possibilities on how citizens and government communicate today. And here I need to state that when we talk about chatbot, we are not talking about the typical chat whereby you will get directions on how to get from A to C. It is really helping the citizen to solve the task that they are facing. So for instance, the next time Oit gets into the car accident and there are no casualties, we will redirect Oit to insurance provider, and Oit doesn't need to do anything else. And this is already something that we are right now considering in the phase 2 as a possibility. And I mentioned classification of citizen messages. This is similarly a project that is a little bit behind time. So unfortunately, we had some, it was actually just taking a lot of time to classify all the citizen questions. So close to 40,000 citizen questions have been manually classified, whether it belongs to one agency and another. And we have many different organizations right now working on data, preparing data as well. So hopefully in the coming few weeks, we will start with the classification of citizen message project as well. And it will be a high-level classifier for the whole ecosystem. And right now we are similarly working on analysis and proof of concept as the Estonian national mobile app. However, this is to understand whether we can use kind of our web-based service, whether an application is necessary, or there are possibilities to collaborate with the private sector using, for instance, Amazon Alexa or Apple Siri or other services. We continue to invest in speech synthesis. Right now, we have the first open source speech synthesis already available. However, we see that we need to invest more because it's not fully kind of commercially ready. The voice still has some issues and also some specific use cases, for instance, punctuation, and it just doesn't work out well. Information extraction I mentioned previously as well. And right now we have an ongoing project on consent management platform. And the idea of consent management platform is to citizens to have a possibility to decide which private sector counterpart has access to their own privately held data. And we hope to demo the first things in December, but the project actually runs till May 2021. And then we are already giving the possibility to share personal data in some of the key use cases belonging to healthcare. And at the same time, we are thinking of how we can extend the government services to other channels, potential channels. So when the alternative channel project focused more on messaging, then the cooperation with Google, Samsung, Apple, Microsoft focuses more on providing public services actually through their own specific virtual assistants. So as I said, Samsung Bixby, Amazon, Apple Siri, Google. So we are working on sorting out what we are able to do, how we can actually make the government more closer to the citizen. And similarly, we are working on cross-border service provision. And in Finland, our great friends, they have a separate initiative called Aurora AI. And in Estonia, we have Great AI. So we are looking at how we can compile these two projects and move ahead together. And a further roadmap will be prepared by January 21. And again, if you want to keep an eye on what is happening regarding the projects, go to gradit.ee. And everything that Estonia does, we try to make them open source whenever available, whenever possible. And they are published at government code repository, which is available at koodivaramu.eesti.ee. You can see from the slide as well. And we are continuing to publish more projects. So hopefully you can reuse many of the things we have done so far. And before the end, just some of the things I'm going to restate. Data has to be used to make citizens' lives better. You don't need to make the biggest projects. Sometimes even kind of the small scope project work out just well. We see that a major problem right now is still data governance, or how different organizations handle data. And here it is quite crucial to state that it is important to all government agencies to understand what data they actually have, where that data resides. So provide relevant metadata. In Estonia, we published a metadata standard that different government agencies must follow. But similarly, we must have this approach across countries. So we can reuse open data sometimes, and build services that are cross-border. Establish data governance principles, data standards, and data quality control. In Europe, we have different data standards in place, and in Estonia, we are following them. If there are none, then we are proposing from our own side. So if there are universal standards, then always follow them. And finally, if you have the quality and accessibility of data, it is also important to actually visualize and disseminate this information, so all the decision makers know what to make up with the information they have. And finally, some of the lessons that we have right now learned going through the different projects I today presented. It is important to improve the search and access to data. Often we in government, we are unaware where one or the other data set still resides, even though we have a central system that compiles all of this information in one place. Ensure data quality and provide metadata. Metadata is something that organizations still in their youth don't do that often. So this is something that we need to keep on working, understanding what different elements actually mean, for which purpose the data was collected at first place. So this is a basic data management hygiene that we are talking about, but organizations need to start investing their time already pre-hand. Also, we see that reusability and open source actually works. It pays off. Practical cooperation. What we are doing today wouldn't be possible if we were doing it alone. So cooperation between countries, private sector, research institutions, non-government organizations, we need to collaborate. If something that we have built in Estonia could be used by someone else, we need to collaborate. We need to share what we have done, what has failed. This is kind of at the heart of everything that we strive for. And we no longer should think that every country kind of competes with each other. It is about making the lives of citizens the best we can possibly have. We still have some limitations as well, mostly regarding automation. So we are unable to fully automate the different government processes. From one side, it is possible, but we need to change the act each time. So we need a kind of changes in the legislation that it might happen more easily. So right now, even in situations where a person's well-being is definitely not affected. We are unable to fully automate those processes and need to have a human in between. Scalability, due to the situation around Cloud Act and Data Shield, we are unable to use different private sector provided services. So in Europe, we need to sort out what are the limitations. Can we use the different services provided by the different big tech vendors or not? And also data protection. This is not an issue. This is actually something really great from one side, but everyone is still learning on where goes the limit. In Estonia, when data is collected for one specific reason, it only can be used for one specific reason. And unfortunately, what it means is that in some cases, even if we know that, for instance, social background plays an important role in understanding whether there is a potential fire hazard happening in a building, we are unable to use this information to make better predictions. So now firemen just visit houses randomly. However, we are able to make better make better decisions when we have access to that data. But unfortunately, from one side and from the other side, thankfully, we are unable to use data whatever way we wish we could do. And in the end, as I already stated, KISS, keep it simple and short. Do small projects, see if they work. If they do, scale it up. So it was an hour from my side. Thank you so much. I hope that the little bump we had in the middle didn't interrupt anything. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ott, for this very inspiring talk. I'm sure the hiccup was not due to Estonia. It must have happened somewhere else. So we have we have a great audience because they posted very pointed questions. They're all very interesting. I'm trying to run through all of them if I can. So maybe if you keep your answer to about like 1 minute, 30 seconds, I think we can do all of them. So I think I'll just run through them in sort of the order. So is a job loss due to automation a problem in Estonia, and how do you tackle that?
Yeah, so I mentioned before we start our presentation that we are also tackling re-education a lot. So actually developing ICT skills is a key factor. Right now, we still lack kind of the necessary hands, but the programs we have so far, they have worked out quite well. So for instance, IT for non-IT people, we see close to 70–80% women actually finishing the program. So we are introducing a lot of women to field that is otherwise quite dominated by male. And as a result, I think Estonia right now in Europe has second highest number of women in ICT education. So just popularizing the field, raising awareness of the pitfalls. And also, I will just final thing, we are not replacing people. They are able to right now do things that are more meaningful. So reading or adding keywords to something or forwarding emails is not actually a meaningful job that anyone would like to do.
And one question that was posted later was on education. I mean, Estonia is actually very good with respect to educating its citizens. In the last PISA survey that was published last year in December, Estonia ranks top among the OECD countries in all three categories, writing, science, and math. So, well, congratulations on that. It's fantastic. How do you do that?
So similarly to other fields, we have digitalized education as well. For instance, e-education system, we ourselves predict that the number of children skipping school has been reduced by over 30%. Parents are able to track how their student actually proceeds in the school, understands where are the problems. So this is really about sharing the information between different interested stakeholders and also teachers and students themselves. And we are right now working on another project. I today stick with things that we have already done. So we are working on personalized education. This is a project that we hope to start actually in a week or two. And we have two separate projects. One is for the teacher side, other is for the student. So personalized teaching. And as you, Reinhard, know as well, we have a problem that right now it is 45 minutes typically in Estonia for the whole class, but students have different backgrounds. Some are more interested in sports, some have learning difficulties, but we need to target all of them. This is impossible to do. So personalize, cater, same way we personalize other public services, we need to personalize education as well.
Are teachers well paid in Estonia?
No. Above average, but not well paid.
Okay. Next question. What is your favorite AI use case, and what do the citizens of Estonia consider as the best AI use case that you deployed?
I think we need to ask the citizen what is the best AI service. So right now, I actually don't know what people think. However, from my own perspective, definitely the example I mentioned regarding unemployment agency, this is really a great example. Similarly, I'm just a fan of satellite imaging. So even Satikas or the bug detecting mowing of farmlands. This is a simple example that illustrates how and what are the limitations of AI. So I think these are just two great examples from my side.
Okay. Without trust, life wouldn't really be livable. What were the biggest challenges moving 99% of all the services online? How did you gain the trust of the public to do so?
So you mean 20 years ago, or?
I guess it was a longer process, moving 99% of all the services online. So how did you, I mean, often people don't trust their government and maybe especially online stuff. Not quite sure how much you can trust that. So how did you gain the trust of your population?
Yeah. So again, our kind of digitalization started in collaboration with private sector as well. So simple online banking and authentication through that. But it is in the end about transparency and trust. So I already briefly mentioned that the human centricity side, always citizen must come first. And in Estonia, we have kind of a ingrained the way of thinking that we need to make the government as lean as possible. I'm talking the same thing. We're working on the same project while at the same time being in the government. It might sound counterintuitive to someone else working in some other government, but for us, this is kind of thing. We're working for the citizen and really being honest. We had a ID crisis a few years ago. We were honest. What are the risks? And we didn't see the number of or the level of e-services drop even slightly. Actually, it has continued to increase. So being transparent, being honest when something goes bad, talking about the projects that fail, this is kind of the way forward.
Good. Next question. How do you decide which use case to move forward?
So we actually evaluate all of the projects on kind of the cost of the project, the societal impact, and also economic impact or efficiency. So we start out first through mapping out the problems different agencies have, then what is the potential outcome and whether it could be solved through data science or in some other way. So we are never starting out with just AI in kind of our focus, but more on the problem statement and from there on moving.
Are you doing research on how AI can be used to slow down the effect of global warming?
Unfortunately, we are not doing that. However, someone should do that. definitely important question.
I mean, maybe we should say Estonia is a pretty small country population-wise. You have 1.3 million people, so you can't do everything. The size of the country is about the size of Switzerland, a little bit bigger than Switzerland, half the size of Portugal, but you have about 1.3 million people. Okay, good. Are your data centers environmentally friendly?
Say again?
Your data centers, are they environmentally friendly?
As much as they can be. In our new strategy, we are focusing on green data and green ICT. So we try to be the greenest e-government possible.
Okay. Questions related to COVID-19, and maybe that's not necessarily AI related, but maybe do you have use cases on how to tackle COVID-19, or maybe even AI use cases that you use here?
So regarding AI use cases, we had some of them. So one of them was on our 991 call. In Estonia, it is actually 1247, so one channel 24/7. It is not 911 for us. And on those calls, we use transcription and to understand why people call and what are the main concerns. So analytics from that side. Also, we quickly introduced chatbot to basically all government websites to answer kind of the most frequent questions. So these are kind of AI related, also to understand where different people kind of form up. So we had the rule 2+2. So mostly it is just communication side. We haven't had time to do much, but even those solutions I mentioned, we were able to kind of launch them in just a few days' time. So this kind of shows the scalability of things.
How are you helping the elderly in your society to get online and to know how that works?
Yeah, so actually being online doesn't require people to use a mobile phone or their laptop or being part of the government. So in Estonia, we have ID cards. Unfortunately, mine is right now in my jacket, but with using ID card, if you go to local public transportation or you go by prescription drug, you're actually connected to the e-government. You're no longer carrying a paper-based recipe for the drug. You don't need to carry an extra card for the public transportation. So this is the way people are connected. And of course, we try to raise always the kind of people's knowledge. We try to have the last mile, so everyone has access actually to internet. So even people who are living abroad. My father, who passed away a few years ago, was 89 and still used computer daily. My grandma, who is today 91, still continues to use her mobile phone. She is not a computer person. So people are quite welcoming, and I think here we are really relying on social media, on making all kind of the internet and the services we provide more lucrative, because government itself is not your typical go-to first service.
Okay, you said that most of your solutions are based on open source. Did you get pushback from software providers, from the private sector? Is the government seen as a competitor, perhaps, to companies?
Absolutely. This is always something that we need to push back. Even with the Grete AI project, when we first started to build open source project, then people argued that you're not going to get any vendors willing to do that. It is impossible to find anyone willing to spend their time building something that is open source. Unfortunately, the government is paying for the whole project. It is not something that the private sector can then decide on how to use. And this is something that every member state in Europe, every country in the world must keep in mind. When it's public money, it should belong to everyone. It isn't for some company to keep for themselves or for their own benefit.
Can other countries use or get your solutions? Do they work across borders? Can they be reused?
Absolutely. So, for instance, I mentioned Citicus, the agriculture project. This has been commercialized. So it is a company called Capaceta that is now providing their services. You saw the transportation example. So a company called Visory is exporting their solutions to different countries. So most, if not all of the solutions are also available commercially, but you always have a possibility to use them yourself if you have kind of the basic technical competence.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you were trying to tag keywords in books, but you weren't able to do so for books after 1970. Here's one question. I'm not quite sure I understand. Can you give a detailed example of why IP prevented you from tagging books since 19?
This actually, if going into the detail, it was related to using cloud service instead of in-house infrastructure. So we were on that project using cloud provider, and there were concerns or risks that basically all the books, all the information might somehow leak. And it relates back to the data protection issues related to Cloud Act and so forward. But to be honest, if someone wants to steal the books, they have other ways to do that. So just on that project, it was an issue, but this is why I said that we are going to have a second kind of extension, because this is a solvable thing.
Okay. Here's a question on the startup scene in Estonia. We had the Africa Global Summit had a pitching session from Estonian AI startups a few weeks ago. So can you say a few words on how you are nurturing the startup scene, and maybe for those people who don't know, Skype originated from Estonia? One early success.
Yeah, so in Estonia we have one of the highest number of startups and highest number of kind of unicorns as well. And part of it, we really collaborate. So many of the things I have shown here, we are not working typically with big IT companies, but big startups who are testing out new ideas. We are open for collaboration similarly. So it is really about collaboration and also different funding that the government provides for startups similarly if they have new ideas. So in every step we try to support, and also education, people who are competent in ICT.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what you mentioned, Estonia has an e-ID, and quite a few countries don't have that. For example, United States or United Kingdom, they don't have that. India has an amazing project, Aadhaar, where people have an ID. So the question is, how do you verify the citizen behind an ID online? How do you ensure it's the right person? How do you prevent misuse?
So first of all, every citizen is linked to ID number, which they must have. So every citizen in Estonia has an ID number. ID card is mandatory as well. So there isn't a possibility that someone wouldn't have. When it comes to authentication, we use different services provided by State Information Authority. One of them is mobile ID. We have smart ID, which is all of them is mobile based. We also have ID cards, so you PIN codes 1 or PIN 2. So PIN 1 for us is authentication. PIN 2 is a longer 6 sequence, and it is signature. And this is the way we approach.
Are you scanning the iris or using fingerprints like the Indians do?
So not right now. I know that right now private sector is doing that. Also, on kind of what it is, Notary Act. They tested out with e-residence, face recognition as well, whether that person is really who they are kind of saying that they are. And here we did work together with a company called Verif. This is an Estonian startup as well that actually works on biometric.
Can the Estonian citizen ask and find out what the personal data is used for by the government?
So they can ask. It's simple. It takes some time sometimes, but in some cases it is just possible by logging into the government website to see when some specific agency access citizen data. So you don't need to ask, you can just go and see. But in cases that information is not yet there, it is possible to ask.
Mm-hmm. Do you help other countries in getting started on their AI journey? Are you offering consultancy services?
Yeah, we are working with many countries, and as I said, collaboration is a key from our side as well.
Okay, we had the one on education. I'm moving to the next one. Estonia is a small country. Does this, what you're doing, does this work also for bigger countries?
Absolutely. Kind of the size of the country sometimes is opportunity, other times is a weakness. As you mentioned, 1.3 million people isn't a lot. So it is a lot more difficult to find competent people, but it might be easier for us to make changes faster because we have less bureaucracy. But it is possible to everyone.
What technology are you using to transform analog data into digital data?
So regarding analog data to digital data, this is to be honest, this is up to National Archive, and they are using specific technology, and they are right now digitalizing kind of books from 17th century or 18th century or something like that. And I don't actually know what specific technology. They are using private sector provided services. We are right now looking towards using OCR in different use cases to just automate digitalization or making digitalized documents machine readable. But otherwise, I unfortunately don't know.
Okay. What's the impact of 5G networks on your AI use cases? Is there an impact?
Right now, I don't see that it has that much of a big impact yet.
Yeah, I guess 5G is a long journey. It will take a few years, and maybe 6G, we'll see, it will take up. Okay. Could you tell us about the project management lessons learned and the coordination issues among public organizations? Project management lessons learned.
Yeah, so a huge, broad question in that sense. So one of the things I saw early on is that the level of competence across the agencies varies greatly. And we have to start from the basic. If people focus on AI, then people think too far off. If people think about AI, they think about some humanoid replacing everything that we can possibly do. So as a result, one of the key takes is focus on the problem itself and then see how you can solve that. So this is why I emphasized, if you kind of narrow it down with AI, people with no previous experience, they just go mad. The ideas they have no kind of value. They are stuck in their kind of simple position. But also in every project, just this is a no-brainer, have the people that actually work with the system or interact with the citizen involved. So not only the top management, but the people who actually know how the system works. And this is kind of the main thing. And also, we are not funding any project before kind of a data audit side. So understanding whether you actually have data, you have described all the elements. So you need to make some work beforehand. And I think these are like 3 things I'm going to mention right now.
Okay, that's one. Next one is also maybe a bit not easy to answer. Do you have any special advice for developing countries? Which of the tasks should they prioritize?
Which of the tasks? So I would say that you can work at the same time with data governance and data analytics as well. In some cases, kind of the government infrastructure doesn't need to be in place when we talk about satellite images, for instance. So this is one possibility, but otherwise start small. Look for concrete examples that you can then kind of benefit from and lead by example.
Okay. Well, we have answered 21. So questions keep popping up. Maybe
really?
one last, perhaps, maybe, and then we're also coming to the end here. What about the resources that the Estonian government puts or invests every year? Financial resources, human resources. I think I read on your website, your AI use cases, they might get sponsors with 50,000 euros or 100,000 euros, if I remember that correctly. Can you give some numbers, financial, human resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So altogether for 2-year strategy, the funding is 10 million euros altogether. This also includes data science master's degree program. We initiated together with Tartu University, different kind of awareness raising and so forward. So 10 million isn't a lot. At the same time, it's 1.3 million people as well. The typical project right now is around 50 to 60,000 euros. And altogether, we typically fund the smaller projects up to 100,000 euros. And those projects can go bust or fail. And if it's a more concrete idea, then up to 500,000 euros. So this is kind of simple funding. Okay.
Good. All right. We've come to the end. Odd, thanks a lot. That was really great. And we had a very engaging audience. We will publish the slide set. The video can be replayed. So it was really fabulous to have you had on board. So this was Odd Velsberg. He became the government chief data officer with 27. Now you're 29. You're still the chief data officer of the Estonian government, and we wish you all the best for the future. And good luck with your PhD defense end of the year. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Reinhard. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
So thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you, Odd, and thank you to the audience, to the attendees. Let me just read out what you will be able to see over the next few days. So on the 11th of November, which is tomorrow, we have a session in our series Artistic Intelligence. How does data sound, or what does data sound like? So we have an artist that's turning data into sound. The day after, on the 12th of November, we have another keynote speech. We have a speaker from Amazon Web Services, AWS, and it's on improving disaster response at the edge and in the pandemic. And then on Friday, the 13th of November, we have a colleague from the MIT Media Lab who is talking about wearable AI and the future of human augmentation. This is our program for this week. Please check our website for other sessions in the following weeks. Thanks very much for having been with us. Bye-bye.
Selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector.